Guys, I'm back here with head coach Mike Jarvis. Thanks again so much for being with us.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Coach, last time we talked, we got a little bit into the journey that you've had, some of the successes, as well what the future holds for FAU basketball.
Right.
Now, an integral part of that future is going to include your assistant coach, who a lot of people may or may not know, that is also your son, Mike Jarvis II.
That's right. He's my associate head coach, and he has been by my side. Hey, we've got a 43-year relationship. 40 of those years have somehow been connected to sport, because at the age of 3, his mother used to bring him to Hoyt Field in Cambridge, Mass. when I was coaching my freshman baseball team, and the little Volkswagen, the blue Volkswagen door would open up, and this 3-year-old would come out of the Volkswagen, hit the ground and run across the field, put on a baseball helmet, and he served as my bat boy for my freshman high school baseball team. That was his introduction, with me in a formal way in sport, and we've been together ever since.
As it pertains to athletics, also a very talented baseball player. And one story in particular that I found intriguing was the events that surrounded his last Little League at-bat.
Oh, geez, I can tell you right now, it was September 13, 1981, and he was playing in his last Little League game, which happened to be the Cambridge All-Star Little League baseball game, and he had a pretty good bat, and so he was up at the plate in his last appearance, and there was this kid on the mound, and he was throwing the ball pretty good, and anyhow, he ended up hitting the ball out of the ballpark, and it went over the pool, and somebody went out and got the ball and brought it back and gave it to my wife, Connie, and it was the only baseball that we ever saved as a souvenir. So on the baseball we wrote, Mike, last at-bat, September 13, 1981, and basically kept it as a trophy. And we moved, a couple of times we moved from Cambridge to Washington, D.C., from Washington, D.C. to New York, from New York to Florida. And every time we moved, this baseball found a spot in a box. And one night, before a Big East game in Madison Square Garden, a friend of mine called me on the phone, and I think we were getting ready to play Connecticut or Pitt or somebody, and he says, I got somebody I want you to talk to on the phone. And this guy always does this. So I said, who is it? I ain't got time. He says, seriously, I got this guy wants to talk to you. So I said, okay, give me the, so I said, hello, who's this? He said, this is Matt. So I says, now, I said, Matt who? He said, this is Matt Damon. I says, listen, I'm getting ready for a big game tomorrow in the Garden, and I ain't got time to be messing around. Who is this? He says, seriously, this is Matt Damon. And he says, I've been following you and Mike, since my days in Cambridge, and I just want to let you know how proud I am of you. And I want to tell you a story. He says, when I was a little kid, and he goes back and he says, I used to play baseball, and I was a pitcher. And the story goes on. He says, I'm pitching, and I'm throwing my best stuff, and my dad thought I was going to be a Red Sox pitcher someday. And all of a sudden, I throw this pitch to this kid, and he hits it out of the ballpark. And I went home that day, Matt says, and my dad said, Matt, I think you're a pretty good baseball player, but maybe that's not your sport. So he says, that's when I really got into acting, and I owe all of that to the kid who hit that home run against me. And it was little Mike. It was your son, Michael. So that baseball that we carried from September 13, 1981, until this day, was the last pitch that Matt Damon ever threw as a baseball player, and Mike just crushed it. So I hope Matt Damon hears this, because I would love someday to be able to maybe give him the ball. You never know.
Those are the stories that build the relationship that you have as a father-son, probably a relationship that most parents want to have with their kids. And that special relationship, that special bond, I would expect gives you guys a level of communication that might exceed the level that exists amongst more typical coaching staff. Talk a little bit about that relationship.
And you know what, the relationship is obviously one that's built on love. I mean, first of all, friendship. And yet at the same time, I was his dad first, and I'm still his dad. So it's built on, a father-son relationship, which is the greatest relationship of all. I mean, father-son. So, we have an incredibly unique relationship. And God, wired us very similarly in the sense that we love sport, we love to compete, we love this particular game because of how it allows us to express ourselves. And we both basically have this passion, and we share this passion. And, at the age of 12, another little story, I hope you don't mind, I selected Mike. He was my ball boy at this time for my high school, my state championship high school team, which had Patrick Ewing. So he's my ball boy. And I was asked to coach the McDonald's All-American game, and so I was allowed to pick an assistant. Well, I selected my son, 12-year-old, to be my assistant. So we go out and we coach our team, and on our team is none other than Michael Jordan, Chris Mullin, Hall of Famers. So we got a couple of Hall of Fame guys, and we got an All-American who now does TV work, Adrian Branch. From DeMatha High School out of D.C. So anyhow, we're playing this all-star game. Now, at the age of 12, game's about 3 minutes old. Mike comes down the bench and says, "Hey, Dad, we got to get him out of the game." And so I said, "Mike, who are you talking about?" He says, Adrian Branch. He's not playing any defense. So I said, "You know what? You're right." So I took Adrian out the game, and Adrian was hot. I mean, he'd never expected to be substituted out the game, especially for not playing defense. So he goes down the end of the bench, slams himself down in the chair. My 12-year-old assistant gets up, goes down the bench, kneels in front of Adrian Branch and says, Adrian, puts his finger in his face and says, we came here to win this game. And if you don't play defense, my dad ain't putting you back in the game. He came back, sat down next to me, and about 3 minutes later, he, like he does now, he hit me with an elbow and said, "Hey, Dad, let's see if Adrian's ready to play." I put Adrian back in the game. Adrian went on to become the MVP of the game, and we won the game 96-95 in front of a national television audience. That day I knew that my son Michael was going to be a head Division I basketball coach someday. And like I said, 93 he became my assistant at GW, his first year coaching. We walk out in Seattle Superdome in front of 41,000 people to play against Michigan Fab Five. That's how we began our formal college coaching career together. And by the way, for history's sake, we were the first father-son team of color, first African-American coaching tandem in the history of NCAA Division I basketball.
Going forward, how big of a role do you expect your son to play in the FAU program if everything goes as you would hope?
Well, first of all, he's probably, honestly, as far as, he's as much a reason why I'm still doing what I do, because I'm able to do it with him. And I really feel that anything is possible, not only with the help of the good Lord, but with my son by my side. And that together, we're going to build this basketball program into a championship, big-time Division I basketball program. But with the experience he's had, not only with me and at universities like, George Washington and St. John's and now FAU, and he's also worked at Duke. I mean, he's one of the few people that's ever worked at Duke that hasn't been in the Duke family. His resume is as good as any other assistant in the country. His knowledge of basketball and his ability to teach, as good as anybody out there. He could coach right now at a major Division I. I'm talking about, top 20 team, no doubt in my mind.
Well, there's no question he has the credentials, as you mentioned, and I know that aside from being your son, he's also been mentored by some of the biggest names in college basketball. You had mentioned Duke and Mike Krzyzewski. Along with what you've done and how you guys have interacted over the years and all the mentoring you've got from such great basketball minds, talk a little bit about some of the similarities in your guys' coaching approach and some of the differences, if any, that have been created along that journey.
Well, I hope there's differences. I know there's a lot of similarities, but I would also hope that Mike, like anybody, has taken the good things that I have to offer and said, maybe I can incorporate that into my style, my system. And yet I hope at the same time he's taken some of my flaws and said, I ain't doing that, not the way my dad has done it. I would say we're similar in the respect that we're both very passionate about what we do. We both love to compete. We both love to win. We both know what it takes to win. And we also know what kind of players you have to recruit to have a chance of winning. That's the biggest challenge today, is recruiting. The other thing that I think that he understands too is that how important it is to know the kids, to have a sense of where they're coming from, where they want to go, and how they might get there. And and always realizing that a lot of these kids, most of them are not going to play professional basketball, and that our job is to prepare them to get a job other than basketball. If it includes basketball, great, but they've also got to get a job other than basketball. And when you do that, to put yourself in a position where you can raise a family, a real family. Have real kids that want to listen to their parents, and so Mike has now started on that road. He's got a little baby girl, Delaney.
Congratulations.
And a beautiful girl, smart girl, just like her mother. And and if Delaney listens to her grandmother, she's going to be okay, and along with her parents, of course.
Every time I talk to you, I get more enthused about the upcoming season for FAU, as well the future as a whole, and I'm sure I speak for everybody here that I hope it includes your son. How good do you feel about this upcoming season with the recruiting class that we had talked about, where your son's at as your assistant, and where the team is in general going forward?
Well, right now, we're preparing for basically a pretty significant influx of new bodies and new talent, which I think will help take us to another level. The guys who've been here, I think, have laid a good foundation, but it's now time for us to step it up. And we play one of the toughest schedules, non-conference schedules in the country. I mean, we're going to be playing the #1 rated team in the country, Indiana. We're going to be playing North Carolina. We're going to be playing Mississippi State. We're going to be playing a lot of good schools. And then we got to compete in a tough, underrated, unrecognized Sun Belt conference, which takes us all over the world. And, it's tough. And, we got to win our conference tournament championship to go to the NCAA. That's our goal. And I'd like to hope that this year when we get to the tournament, we're tougher mentally, and, that we can go in there and get it done. As far as Mike goes, I want nothing. I want what the good Lord wants for him, and I know he wants nothing but good for him. And if it's here at FAU, great. But wherever it is, I want Mike to be able to say someday, like I, can say that, I've had a great life. My coaching career and where it's taken me and the people I've met, the things I've experienced, I wouldn't trade for anything else in the world. And if he can say that someday, then you know what? Then we're all blessed.
You mentioned in the last segment about that there is no starting team right now.
No.
You've got guys like Stephon Moody, I think, can jump out of the gym, dunk contest, he's going to be electrifying.
Yeah, we don't have dunk contests though, so we can't win any games from dunk contests. Now our job is going to be to take that incredible athletic talent that he has and ability he has and translate it into a solid basketball package. But people will, there'll come times in a game when, guess what, that incredible ability will manifest and show itself. But Stephon Moody, you mentioned, we got a kid coming out of New York City by the name of Kayvon Baker, who is a real New York City guy who can really play. Chris Bryant, who was Player of the Year in the Tallahassee area 2 years ago. Jackson Trapp, who played with Chris in prep school, is a big guy that can shoot. Our best recruit was here last year practicing, couldn't play. Greg Gant's going to be a senior. Jordan McCoy will be a senior. Andre Madison will be a senior. Pablo Patron will be a junior. Austin Hunt hopefully will, make the squad again this year and contribute. But we lost some guys that had great careers. Sherrod Richardson, was a 1,000-point scorer. Alex Tucker was our all-time leading assist guy. Unfortunately, Ray Taylor left early to pursue a pro career. And we, had a couple of guys transfer out, that wanted something different.
How far do you want to go in the tournament?
Well, I want to go all the way. You're talking about which tournament?
First of all, we know you're going to win the Sun Belt.
Well, we don't know anything, but we're going to try like heck, okay? Let's just say everything falls into place and we're playing our best basketball, which we have not in the last few years. And I think a lot of it had to do with the head. But if we get to the Sun Belt Conference tournament, where I think we should be, and that is in a position to win it, and we win it. The reason why we play schools like Indiana, schools like North Carolina, and the reason why we played schools like Kansas and Florida is so that when you get to the tournament, those are the kinds of teams that we're going to play right now. When we get in the tournament, we're going to be a we're going to be a high seed. We're going to be a 14 or 15 seed, which means we're going to play a 1 or a 2 seed, which means you're playing against a team that is one of the top 8 teams in the overall tournament that are supposed to win it. So the only way I think that you can even have a chance of competing with and maybe pulling off a miracle victory in the tournament is by playing those people beforehand. So you know what you can do. You know what you can't do. And now you try to hopefully get good enough so you can maybe pull off that miracle upset. I've seen it done. I've been a part of it. And so I know it can happen. 1993, when I was at GW, in fact, Mike's first year of coaching, we were a 12 seed. We won our first game against a 5 seed. We won our second game. We went to the Sweet 16, played the Michigan Fab Five. Weber and Jawan Howard and all those guys.
Jalen Rose, Jimmy King.
Rose, yep, in front of 40,000 people in Seattle. And with 3 minutes to go in the game, we were winning. And unfortunately, we didn't get a couple of rebounds we should have, and they beat us. And they went on to lose that famous game where Weber called a timeout he didn't have against North Carolina. But we almost beat that team. So I know it can happen. And that's the beautiful thing. See, when you've been somewhere, we're 3 points away from going to the Final Four at St. John's. We lost to Squinty Penn and Michael Redd, Ohio State. So I know what can happen. And there's no reason, but it's going to take a lot of blessings and a lot of luck for it to happen here at FAU, but it can happen. If the good Lord is with us, and anything's possible.
As students, we're ecstatic to have you and your son here and really looking forward to a great season.
Well, let me just say this about the students, and we're sitting now in what is called the Borough. It's a undersized facility. Make no mistake about it, it's only hosts 3,200 people, 3,200 seats, I believe, are in this building. But it's also a great venue for a basketball event. Very intimate, all red and blue chairback seats, big time screen, beautiful floor. Great acoustics, great place for a basketball game. And what has happened is and will continue to happen is we're going to, you try to make this an event. It's almost like you're going to a combination basketball, concert, fashion show, whatever, all those things all rolled into one. Lots of entertainment. And you want to not only entertain the students but the community. We have had sellout crowds. Every game, my goal is for every single game to be sold out here in the Borough, which I think should happen and will happen when we put the kind of team on the court and the kind of atmosphere around that team that you need to have. But there's no reason why this place isn't sold out, and our students have done an incredible job. A couple years ago, Hayden Trepic, Mike Birdman, and Mike Birdman continues to work, with the students and their leadership. And I think the students love coming here for the games, and it gives them something. And as this community and as this school grows, and as we get more and more students on campus, this becomes an incredibly important venue. Basketball, it's a 2-semester sport. We start playing games in November, we go through up to March. Got to have a place to go in the wintertime.
Guys, again, we're very lucky to have Coach Jarvis here as well as son, and expect the support of all the FAU students out there. The crowd is just as much part of the game as the players out there in certain circumstances, as Coach mentioned, in some of the rivalry games against other Sun Belt Conference teams. So we'll see y'all here this season, and we'll see Coach Jarvis getting elbowed by his son, and get an idea of what the future does hold for the basketball program. Thanks again so much, Coach.
Thank you.
It's really a true pleasure.
My pleasure. Pleasure's all mine.